What is up, my friends, and welcome into another edition of the All Nittany Lions podcast right here on PHLY. Thanks so much for hanging out with us once again. Myself, Tyler Zulli, Adam Talieferro, Jason Cabinda, my guys to my right. As always, it is good to be back with you both. It's been a kind of a wild 48 hours here at PHLY because it's been very Philly-centric. Phillies clinched the NL East last night. The Eagles hold on to a win. A win is a win, right? And you guys talk about it all the time. A win is a win in the NFL and in college. So it's been a pretty hectic 48 hours for a lot of the PHLY staff, but not a lot of hectic on Saturday. Penn State takes care of business as we kind of expected them to over Kent State. So we'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, good to be back with you guys as always.
Tyler, always good to be with you and Jason, man. This is the highlight of my week. Excited to talk about the game and, of course, look forward to next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a different, reaction preview and how we kind of split things up because there is a big game, next wech. But we will start with the Kent State game. And guys, we talked about it prior to the game last week. Kind of a tune-up game, if you will, kind of a pseudo preseason game, if you will. Kent State has really struggled over the last two seasons. They're now 1-16 in their last 17 games. Had really struggled on both sides of the ball. Based on most metrics, were last or near the bottom of just about every FBS ranking you could imagine. And Penn State took care of business, right? 56-0 over the Golden Flashes this weekend. Just some numbers for you guys really quickly. It was the largest shutout win in almost a year since you got to go all the way back to October. All the way back. You go back to October of last year when Penn State beat UMass 63-0. I know we'll talk about some of the records, but 718 total yards of offense for Penn State breaks a near 100-year record. 40 first downs breaks a near 60-year record. And it was pretty much just utter dominance by Penn State from start to finish. And not a whole lot of surprise for me here, guys, and maybe for you as well. We talked about it, the better team on both sides of the ball, but good to see the team come out and kind of just take care of business. That's been kind of my mantra all weekend and into the beginning of the week was take care of business, and that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did everything we were hoping that they would do as far as coming out, exerting their dominance from the very first snap. The thing that I really like to see was we talked about ball distribution is that, a bunch of guys were touching the ball. We saw Liam Clifford get involved. We saw Julian Fleming get involved. So all around, I just was proud of the way that those guys handled that game. Business-like approach. They got out of there. Hopefully no injuries and on and upward to Illinois next week.
Yeah, I mean, school record of yards on offense, 718. I mean, complete domination up front on offense. Defense holds them to 67 yards, whatever. I mean, it's just the numbers were outstanding, exactly what we wanted. Easy to nitpick with that game. Still a little bit of a penalty issue, I guess you can say, which is kind of surprising as a Penn State team because that's normally a strong suit of ours, being a very disciplined team. But at least a good thing with that is that's something that can easily be cleaned up. And then obviously didn't love starting the game with the kickoff out of bounds, penalty, just, so just little things like that. Caden put the ball on the ground again on that punt return. That's the second time now. So neither time has it, bit us in the butt, but that's definitely something that, the really good teams look at and they say to themselves, okay, against an Ohio State, against a Michigan, they might take advantage of that. And that might be the thing that, pins us in the butt or messes us up. So getting all those little things cleaned up, even though you have a dominating win, that's just a sign of a, mature team. Winning minimizes the problems, losing maximizes the problems, but the problems always exist.
So you bring up those 718 total yards of offense, go all the way back to 1926, where they played Susquehanna College. So that'll kind of show you how long that record tracks back to. And then the 41st downs was against West Virginia in 1962. Adam, you brought up a couple of different guys getting involved. Liam Clifford was one of them. He scored his first Penn State touchdown. Cam Wallace scored his first Penn State touchdown. And in total, 8 different guys got in the end zone this weekend. So a thoroughly just spread the ball out, get guys involved, dominating type performance. And what really kind of stood out to me, and I'm glad that they were able to, pound the rock. They ran the ball 50 times on Saturday and picked up 309 yards of offense and averaged 6.2 yards a carry. And I saw somebody in the comment section of a breakdown that I was watching earlier talk about how the largest run of the day was only 18 yards, and they used only 18 yards and said they were getting 6.2 a clip. How does that translate to, better defenses? And I don't know how you guys felt, but methodical is not a bad thing, in my opinion. 18 yards as your longest run, and you're able to pick up 300 plus rushing yards. And again, I know it's against an inferior defense, but methodical doesn't necessarily mean ineffective. And sometimes it could even be even more efficient, because when you will play an Ohio State, you will play a USC, you're going to start grinding down these defenses. And then in the third and fourth quarter, you're going to have, 30 runs or 35 runs, and that defense is going to be tired.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking, just rewatched the game a little bit this morning, and I know we've spoken on previous podcasts about the skill players, the position players typically being somewhat equal, and even the skill position players at Penn State, you can just tell they were 1 or 2 steps slow in the defensive secondary. So I think if Penn State wanted to, they could have went over the top as much as they wanted. But I think, this was a great opportunity for them to work on those type of opportunities to sustain drives, to pound the ball, to get the offensive line a little bit more work. So to your point, Tyler, I think it was a great opportunity to show that they are able to sustain drives down the field, because when Big 10 play starts next week, that's what you're gonna have to do. Of course, we all love the big explosive plays, but it's those small methodical plays that really sustain drives that'll help you win games as you go throughout the season.
Yeah, and to me, I just think this is a bit of a, one of those catch-22 conversations. I mean, we were talking about this after week 1, saying, okay, well, is our offense too explosive? The defense is out there too long. We're only having 4 or 5 play drive before we get to 6 points, or is it, okay, we want 10, 12 play, 70-yard drives where every single, set of downs is coming down to 3rd or 4th down for us to move the chains. To me, it's kind of a who cares type of deal. At the end of the day in football, man, you got to score points in the other team. So regardless of how we're getting the ball down there, whether it's a 3-play 75-yard drive or it's a 10-play 75-yard drive, that eats up the clock. That's one of those, Big 10 grinder drives. As long as we're getting down there, we're putting points on the board. The offense is doing their job. I don't mind that at all. If we end up being super explosive and it's a low amount of plays to get points, then let's lean on our defense and let that continue to be the workhorse and the strong suit, strength of our team that it's always been. So that's one of those conversations you can go back and forth and around with. But I think at the end of the day, as long as the offense is doing their job and they're putting points on the board, man, it's all good to me.
Yeah. So
let me ask you guys, obviously both of you, defenders, different positions, but played defense. And when you have a situation like that, and you were just bringing up, is it a 3 or 4 play drive, or is it a 15-play methodical drive? When you guys are on the sideline standing there as a defensive player, and maybe Penn State goes right down the field, they score in 3 plays, a big chunk play, and they score. I know, physically you may still be winded a little bit if you were on the field for a long time, but as a defender, do you have a surge of energy? Is there a let's go after your offense just picked up a big chunk play, even if you've only been standing on the sidelines for maybe 45 seconds, a minute and a half, whatever the case may be? Does that give you a renewed sense of energy if you do go right down the field like that? Or do you guys prefer the methodical drive to give you that time that you're looking for on the sideline?
I mean, from my standpoint, it didn't matter. I said, any chance to be out there doing what I love to do, I'm like, let's go. And from a defensive perspective, again, when I played, I know times have changed a lot. we wanted to be out there whenever the time called, whatever duty called, it's time to roll. Whether it was a turnover deep in our territory where we got to go buckle up and try to hold them to a field goal, or if we're deep in their territory and we're trying to get a turnover to pin them down, in their territory, it's let's go. But I always say the offense can rally you up a little bit if you see them out there balling, because it's a competition as well. Because between the defensive offense, you both want to do your thing out there. So if you see the offense balling, you want to go out there and hold your weight as well. So I think it kind of goes both ways. I love to hear what Jason would have to say, but from my standpoint, it's like, hey, let's just go out there. Any chance we get to go out there, let's just go out there, do our thing, make our stops, and get the ball back to the offense.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think to me, and I have a unique perspective of just the fact that I played on both sides of the ball. So I've been on the sideline on both sides, on offense, man, when you're getting big plays, big chunk explosive plays, you get this feeling of they can't freaking stop us. There's that feeling of it don't matter what we throw at them, there ain't nothing they can do about it. And that's a great feeling to have on offense. And especially when you're a defense and you're on the sideline, you're witnessing that, you're like, oh yeah, we're good. Offense is going to have our back. Now, vice versa, when you are going through those, sustaining those long drives, defensively on the sideline, there's a level of anxiety on the defense. Man, every single time it's coming down to third down, it's coming down to 4th and 1. You're like, oh, are they going to get it? Are they going to get it? Punt return, about this, Adam. Punt return gets called on third down to get our punt return will get called on third down to get on the sideline and get ready in case the third down conversion doesn't happen. Then okay, they got it. All right, now we go sit back down. There's just something about that explosion from a momentum standpoint, from an energy standpoint, that, man, it just really gets you juiced, because it really just feels like they can't stop the offense. When you're going against those bend, don't break defenses, you're basically leaving more room for the offense to not have to make mistakes, when you play that bend, don't break defense, as opposed to just breaking their will with big plays where it's like, man, we don't even have an answer for these guys. So,
yeah, I mean, my first couple of years at Penn State, like I said, of course I got hurt my freshman year, but just first 2 years up at Penn State, our offenses weren't really putting up numbers like that. So a lot of weekends, our defense was like, hey, you know what? We got to score some points. We got to get some takeaways and make it easier for our offense, because if we don't do it, it's probably not going to happen. So it was a motivating factor for on the opposite end of the stick, where our offense was struggling a little bit early in the season. And if we knew if we could make a play, put them in some plus, territory type situations, it could help them, maybe kickstart the offense. So I think we served a dual purpose from, wanting to do our thing, but also help motivate the offense to get this thing going. Luckily, this team doesn't seem to have that problem this year. So we just got to keep that.
So flipping sides of the ball, because we talked about some of the lesser experienced guys getting opportunities to get touches on the offensive side, and 2 of them scoring touchdowns. Jason, last week you talked about the impact and who's going to be the guy to step up in KJ Winston's absence, and DeJuan Lane was the guy that you brought up and mentioned, so I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, because he was one of the guys that got some reps and played a pretty substantial role on this defense. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Lane's performance in this one. And then I guess secondarily, James Franklin was talking about a situation where when everybody's healthy, he could actually envision a scenario where it's Lane and Wheatley as the safeties, with Reed being able to play into a little bit of a slot role, a nickel role, kind of a hybrid role. And he used the term, the lion position. So first, let's talk about Lane, and then I want to get to what that means for maybe somebody that doesn't understand it. So, Jason, you brought Lane up last week, so I want to start with you. What did you see from him? How did he step up, and what were your expectations of him, and did he meet them?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the biggest thing I wanted to see out of him is, 1, him play fast, and then number 2, him not, make a lot of mental errors. In Coach Franklin's Wednesday practice interview, he had talked about Day Lane. He talked about KJ Winston and how KJ's still going to have a great leadership role for him. I imagine KJ is the kind of guy, I've talked to him a lot. He's the kind of guy where if he's hurt, he's going to be right there on your hip, making sure you still know what to do, coaching you up. And I imagine all that week he was doing that with Day, because I thought Day went out there and played really well. You could tell the game plan around him was, we're going to put Day where he's most comfortable and then we'll move other pieces around. We saw Jay Reed not really in that line position as much, kind of playing more true half safety, a lot more in that game, and kind of letting Day take his other natural position at the other safety spot. But I thought he played well. I thought he played fast. There weren't any huge explosive plays, balls going over his head from that standpoint, which was really good to see. I thought he just did a good job of allowing the game to come to him because, when you're geeked up, you've been a reserve guy. You want to go out there and show what you could do. So you start to play out of the system a little bit. You start to do a little bit too much and overcompensate for somebody else's job instead of just doing what you're supposed to do. And I didn't feel any of that from him in this game, which was really good to see.
Yeah, no, Jason, I agree with everything that you said. And I said just those game reps are priceless. I remember we would go over and practice in the stadium. We'd have scrimmages in the stadium. And when you put butts in those seats and you hear that crowd going, it's a whole different dynamic. And those wide receivers start putting it in that extra gear, it's like, whoa, like it's real now. So to be able to get those, I don't care if it's Kent State, whatever, any school you want, as long as you're getting game reps, those are priceless. And I always say as a DB, it was often somewhat different for me when you have a full stadium and just trying to capture the ball coming out of the quarterback's hand. It's like sometimes you don't see it off the bat. It probably was just me because I probably wasn't that good of a DB, but just being able to have that focus of the crowd and tracking the ball is so different from when you have just an empty stadium. So just
That's very true. That is very true.
You don't really think about are so much more helpful when you're out there in an actual game situation.
That's such a minute detail that you just explained, just the phenomena of the ball and how it blends in with people in the crowd and in the stadium when it's in the air. Most people don't even think about that as being a thing. It is very, very different to catch a go ball when there's 100,000 fans in the stadium and when it's completely different. It's the same thing like in basketball when you go to different stadiums and the lighting is a little bit different. That can sometimes mess with the way you look at the rim and how you shoot your normal jump shot. So that's one of those minute details where live bullets and in live game experience can just be absolutely priceless.
Yep.
So the other point of that question that I was curious about, because I've heard this term before, and coaches have different terms for it, like the weapon position or like a positionless type of player. When James Franklin refers to the lion position, what does that entail? And what's the role of that type of player? Are they expected to play multiple different positions? Are they expected to be in different fronts? Can you guys explain that lion position a little bit and what that means for James Franklin and for Tom Allen's defense?
Yeah, see, I didn't have the luxury of playing under Coach Franklin. It was Tom Bradley when I was there, and I'm trying to remember what term we used. I want to call it I think we used Trojan back when I was playing, and it was to your exact point, Tyler. It was that one person that could really come down in the box, the person that could guard the slot, someone that could drop back into safety. So we called him a jack of all trades, and usually the best athletes on the team because not every I couldn't do that. It was usually I wasn't the type of guy that really wanted to come down and put my head in things. I wanted to be able to guard the wires, cover the wide receiver and leave me alone. But you got to have those guys that are willing to come up, lay the wood when they need to, but also drop back in coverage. So it's a special type of player to be able to take on that role. And Jason, I know you've seen it, much more than I have, but I'll be the first to admit I was not that guy.
Honestly, when I was there, we didn't have a line on defense, but when we have a line position, it's speaking to the versatility of guys. When I was playing, the guy who played the line position was actually Tommy Stevens on offense, the guy who you keep seeing ripping off these 50, 60, and 70-yard runs in the CFL right now. He was one of our quarterbacks, and when we played with Tommy, man, we literally used to call this dude like the white Cam Newton because this dude was like just phenomenal. Big as hell, fast as hell, 4.5 speed, could absolutely sling it. Arm talent was there. Just overall an absolutely great athlete. And for the line position on offense, we kind of see a guy like Bo Pribula do it a lot, where he's out in slot at the slot wide receiver. Okay, he's coming in motion, taking handoffs. Sometimes he's running it. Sometimes he's passing it. Sometimes he's in at the wildcat quarterback, and it's quarterback design runs. So really, that line position is just a guy who is able to bring a extra element and kind of extend the offense and its repertoire and what it's able and capable of doing, and what the offense coordinator is capable of calling, to kind of make it harder on defenses to kind of figure out, okay, the personnel is this, but are we playing it like it's 11? Are we playing it like it's 21? In what way is this guy being used? And I think that's what I've loved so much about the way Coach K has been calling this offense, because he's presenting so many problems for defenses right now. Between the regular flow offense, between Drew and Bo both being in the game, between Tyler Warren now coming in game, and he's coming in as a wildcat guy. Okay, is he throwing the ball? Is he running the ball? Is he handing it off and being elite? I mean, there's just so much that Andy's throwing at defenses right now, where as a defensive coordinator, it's like, man, like, we only have so many periods to focus on certain things. What are we going to pick and choose? Because there's just going to be certain things that, hey, if you see this formation, just play your base call and just play it out, because we don't have time to come up with nothing special in 2-3 days of preparation. That's the awesome thing about it.
So the one guy that I always think about when I hear this like hybrid style, play a little linebacker, play a little safety, and maybe was almost ahead of his time. I don't know if you guys remember Sua Craven, ended up playing for Washington, I think for a little bit. Now he had a little bit of an issue with leading with the crown of his helmet when he liked to tackle with his dome a lot. But I always think about Sua Craven, who was like positionless type of defender who could play some linebacker, could play some slot, could play a little safety. And those type of guys, I'm curious, are like, you guys brought up like the invaluable nature of those type of players. Like, obviously everybody has probably a position that they feel the most comfortable in, but to have a guy like that who is capable and willing to play in that type of role, because I have to imagine it's a mental role too, right? Like, it has to be something you have to commit to be willing to take reps at multiple different positions. Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, you're essentially learning, 2 or 3 different positions, and to be able to maintain and understand your responsibilities and the rest of the defense's responsibilities is a special mental talent as well. And, you talk about Sua Craven, someone that comes to mind is Taylor Mays for me. Taylor Mays, when he was at USC, he was this huge safety, but he would come down and play linebacker, and he would put his nose in there, and it would be a problem when he hit you. So I just think those, if everyone could do it, everyone would, but it's a special group of players that are able to both physically and mentally handle that type of role.
Yeah, because, there's 2 different aspects to it. I think of a guy like Jabril Peppers, the first name that, comes to my head, who kind of made that transition from safety to kind of linebacker his senior year. But, he talks about it just mentally and also physically, because like on the defense, regardless of what position you play, especially once you get to the second level in the back end, you want those guys to be interchangeable, especially when just from a mental perspective, because you want the Mike linebacker to know exactly what the Sam and the Will are going to do in their drops, in coverage. As a corner, you want to know exactly what the safety is going to be doing in coverage. So you know what side you can cheat to, because maybe I have help inside or I have help outside, because the safety is going to be there if I get an in or an out cut or whatever, you may have. But to have the special nature about you, that not only are you mentally there where you understand what's going on next to you and can learn different positions, but you also have the athletic ability to do those things that are required at that position when you're put there. And I think, we saw it with Manny Diaz last year when he put like 7 DBs. I'm trying to remember exactly what he called it. Started with a V. There's a certain name he had for that defense when he put those guys. I think it was Viper or something like that. And there was like 7 DBs out there, 1 linebacker and 3 O linemen. And being able to have that many DBs, super athletic guys that can cover, maybe a couple of them can also blitz, it gives you a lot of range to give a ton of different looks to the offense. So that's very tough to do. It's not an easy thing whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think, Jason, to your point, is you see there's a lot of super talented freshmen out there. You may see them come and they don't get on the field. And it's like physically they can get on the field, but mentally they just aren't ready. And it's not that they don't know what they're doing, but you've got, when you're playing defense, you got to know what all 10 other men on that field, what their responsibilities are. So if you don't have that understanding, and it takes time as a freshman, it takes time to understand the defensive scheme in its entirety. So that's, I try to help people understand, like, we got this great player, he should be out there playing. yeah, physically he should be out there playing, but the mental side of things, he could be a liability if he has no idea what the rest of the defense is doing.
Right. And I think that's why guys like Travis Hunter are just like,
Yeah.
people do not understand. Like and I'll really, beat on this part. Like, people really have no idea how difficult it is to do what Travis Hunter is doing. Not just from a physical standpoint and a conditioning standpoint for your body to withstand that many snaps at positions where you are running a lot with fast guys all day long at corner and at wide receiver, but just the mental aspect. Like on defense, yeah, you're going to install your defense, but really during the season, you're making adjustments maybe to very specific formations that you see because, the D coordinator saw something, whatever. But once your defense is installed, it's pretty much there, and you make all your adjustments based on formation what an offense throws at you. On offense, through a season, yeah, you have your base playbook that you learn during training camp and all that, but week in and week out, you're putting in new plays to certain looks. So you're trying to expose a certain defense for maybe a certain space that they leave in. Maybe you can attack their outsides, or it's easy to attack their seams. So offensive coaches are always coming up with 3, 4, 5 extra plays that are just Minnesota plays or just Ohio State plays. And you have to go in, week out, learning those. So to pile both of those together, like Travis, just an outstanding football player. And it's a shame this dude is not in the Heisman talks right now because he absolutely should be.
Well, I'm sure as the season progresses, we'll get into our Heisman conversations and all the awards, because that's the type of stuff that I love to nerd out at. So we'll do all of that. Coming up, we're going to get into the games, some of the other games around the Big Ten and around the rest of the college football landscape. And we'll wrap things up with a preview of the number 19 team in the country as the Fighting Illini of Illinois are coming to town in Beaver Stadium this weekend. But first, let me tell you about some of our friends, including our friends over at Shady Rays. Whether it is the summer, the fall, the spring, or the winter, you always need your shades on hand for different events, different seasons, and different things. Because like I always talk about, it could be that you're outside and you're at a game, or it could just be that you're driving and you have a difficult time with glare and with the lights and things like that. But Shady Rays will have you covered no matter what, because they have premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. They're an independent sunglasses company that offer a world-class product that is rated by over 300,000 people. They give it 5 stars. I'm one of those 300,000 people. I've been wearing my Shady Rays for a couple years now. I switched from another company. I loved my sunglasses, but Shady Rays is just a step above that other company and most other companies as well. They have durable frames and crystal clear optics, which are perfect for all outdoor activities. Whether you're sitting around watching a game, you're out on a fall hike, or whatever the case may be, the Shady Rays will have the optics that you are looking for to keep your eyes in check on the sunniest of days. They have hundreds of options to choose from as well, so you're bound to find a perfect pair that matches your style. They might even have a style in your favorite team's colors. Blue and white is a pretty popular sunglass color. I'm sure that you could find a pair of blue and white shades to rep your Penn State pride and do it over at Shady Rays. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. If you head on over to shadyrays.com and use the code PHLY, you'll get 35% off your polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades that are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people with our friends over at Shady Rays. And while we're here, let's talk about Ace Hardware as well, because guys, we've talked about this before. I am not a handyman and I need some help around the house when things get difficult. And that's what Ace Hardware Home Services are there for. If you've got a leaky pipe, air conditioning issues, or a faucet that you said, maybe I'm going to fix last fall and now it's this fall, they've got the person for that, because they are not just the helpful hardware folks. They are also the helpful home service and repair folks. So if you've got a plumbing issue, heating, cooling, whatever the case may be, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. That's it over at Ace Hardware Home Services, where they bring helpful home, and you can get great service, great product, quality product, and you know that they're not going to crush you on the prices, because just like you, they own homes, and they want to be able to help you the way that they would help their own home. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.aceHardwareHomeservices.com to get started on your next project as soon as today. A lot of fun games going on across Big Ten last weekend and across college football. And one that we keyed in on last weekend was USC heading to Michigan for a battle of top 25 teams. And guys, we gave the USC defense a lot of credit last weekend, and rightfully so. I think they had deserved it over the first couple of weeks of the season, but it's actually Michigan who comes out on top of this one, despite the quarterback controversy, despite the fact that they are clearly a run-dictated offense. They win this game 27-24. They score the game-winning touchdown from a yard out with less than 40 seconds to play. And guys, I don't know what stood out to you the most in this one, but to me, Michigan being an offense that we know is predicated on the run game, they know they want to run the football. Being able to run for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns on that USC defense on 46 carries was super impressive to me.
Welcome to the Big 10.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say. Welcome to the Big 10 to USC. We talked about it all week. We want to know how USC was going to handle the physicality. Coming to the Big 10. Are they tough enough? We saw them, crank out that win early this season. That was impressive. LSU, all this stuff. Well, they had 32 passing yards. 32. 32. And still lose. I don't know if I'm more disappointed in USC, more impressed with Michigan. I think I'm more impressed with Michigan more than anything. But now you got your question marks about them. All right, now who does this help most in the conference for USC to lose? I think we are helped most. We'll see. But obviously a tough loss for them on the road. Michigan, huge tip your hat, because to overcome not having great quarterback play in this league is not easy at all. So that truly shows the type of culture, tradition, the type of brand of football and how strong the Michigan brand is, because I don't think there's a better way to put it than that. Michigan went out there and played their brand of football and got the win.
Yeah, I love the fact that Michigan just said, we're going to run the ball. We know we're going to run the ball. Stop it. Go ahead. We're not going to pass the ball. You guys are going to have to stop us. And they continue to pound the ball. And like I said, maybe in the Pac-12, Oregon, they may run the ball a little bit, but they're going to get back to that passing that ball. UCLA, all those West Coast teams, they're going to pass the ball. But the Big 10, they're just going to keep running it until you stop it. So USC better buckle up, because every team in the Big 10 is going to steal a page out of the playbook and just run the ball down their throats until they figure out a way to stop the run.
Yeah, a run game, by the way, guys, that I think that the household name is Donovan Edwards, for good reason. He's been awesome each of the last 2 seasons now. He was actually the second leading rusher in this one. He carried the ball 14 times for 74 yards, still ended up with over 5 yards a carry and a score. But Mullings, 17 carries, 159 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It is, like you guys talked about, it's utterly impressive for a team to come out and say, our defense is going to will you, is going to enforce its will, and our run game is going to dominate the line of scrimmage. What's amazing to me, guys, is they ran the ball as much as they did. They actually did not win the time of possession battle in this one, which I just assumed. Like, I was typing up my notes and I said, 1 time of possession battle. And then I went and I was like, maybe I should double check just to be sure. And USC actually ended up with the ball more than Michigan did. Had to throw the ball 51 times. Miller Moss was decent in this one, but he did turn the ball over twice. And just a dominating performance by the Michigan running back room, and their defense continues to play well. It is the 4th straight opponent this season third opponent in three games that they've held to 24 points or less. Of course, Texas scored a pretty lopsided number on them, but in their non-Texas games, defense looks good, run game looks good. At the college level, how far can having a team that relies so heavily on the run and so heavily on their defense, how far can that take you at the college level?
You're going to have to run up against the big boys at some point, and good defensive coordinators are going to figure out how to stop the run. You have to be able to throw the ball at some point in order to win. I mean, like I said earlier, my early times at Penn State, we struggled to throw the ball a little bit, and it reflected in our record. We didn't win a lot of games my first couple of years there because we weren't able to put it up in the air. So, Jason, I love to hear your thoughts, but unless you can pass the ball, if you get to 500, you're good. But I just don't see a path forward without being able to put the ball in the air.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say at this point just how good of a run offense they are going to be against elite run stopping defenses. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like that's the name of the game. Like you can ask any D coordinator in the world. We could talk scheme, X's and O's for days, but at the end of the day, defensively, it starts with stopping the run and
Yeah.
making a offensive team one dimensional. And vice versa, as an offense, it starts with establishing the run game because the run game allows everything else to open up, whether it's play action, pass, gadgets, things of that nature, and being able to kind of build plays off of the run game. So I don't know if Michigan's run game is just that good, but we'll have to see. Because at the end of the day, what I want to see is okay, they've been able to assert themselves dominantly in the run game. What is going to happen when they finally do meet a stalwart and they do get stopped and they do become one dimensional? What does this offense look like? What do they turn to? And right now, in my head, without knowing because it hasn't happened yet, I don't think they'll have anything to turn to when that happens because at the end of the day, it's bound to happen. They're not just going to run through everybody, running the ball game in and game out. I mean, they're due for a day or two or game or two where they're going to have to rely on something else because the run game just ain't getting it done.
So let's take a look at some of the other top 25 matchups across the board before we preview Illinois. And I left that one out intentionally because I know we're going to talk about Illinois and the game against Nebraska in our final segment. But Utah and Oklahoma State, which is never going to be weird to say as a Big 12 matchup. It feels ingrained in my head that Utah and Oklahoma State are not conference opponents, but now they are. No Cam Rising in this one for Utah. Isaac Wilson gets the start instead. He played decently, 1 touchdown through 2 interceptions. But the Utes continue to roll on. They win this one 22-19. And I'm curious your guys' thoughts with Cam Rising, returning from the injury and then not able to play in this one. A team like Utah, we saw them in the Rose Bowl a couple of seasons ago. They are one of those sneaky complete teams, in my opinion, where, you don't give them a lot of credit because they're not the Alabamas, they're not the Texas, they're not the Big 10, stalwarts or the SEC stalwarts. But Utah, seemingly year in and year out, is just like, I hate to make this phrase, but like they almost feel like a professional team where they cycle through some guys and they're right back in the mix. This Utah team's pretty darn good, guys.
And they have been for some time now. That's so true. Because over the past 5 to 10 years, I mean, they've just been relevant. They're slowly sneaking in Rose Bowl game, Fiesta Bowl, and you don't pay too much attention to them until like we're at game 10, 11, and they're like number 9 or number 10. You're like, damn, like, is Utah really that good? I feel like every single year we do that. Are they really that good? Then they go to Rose Bowl, win a Rose Bowl. So, I mean, I honestly thought that was one team where, when they were thinking about other teams to join the Big 10, I was like, that's a brand of football right there. I felt like really fit in well with the Big 10. With all the Pac-12 teams, I really thought Washington was the only team that had a chance to fit in from a Big 10 style of play standpoint. But man, like Utah plays tough, physical, disciplined football. They seem to reload every single year at positions. We've seen guys, Zach Moss, we've seen guys go to the league and leave that program, and they just keep reloading every single year. So a very impressive program to me. Clearly, they're doing the right things from top to bottom in order to sustain that level of success.
And I'll be the first to plead guilty of being one of those that always overlooks Utah because, when Rose Bowl season comes around and I see, especially if Penn State's playing, they're playing Utah, I'm like, what does Penn State have to – we got nothing to gain. If we beat Utah, we're supposed to beat them. If we lose, then you all lost to Utah. But to your point, when that second quarter come around, you're like, oh, these guys really, really got something. So
yeah.
I still feel like I need to be convinced. Maybe I'm still biased. I feel like I still need to be convinced a little bit more about Utah. But I think, they're going to sneak up on some folks. And it's a team that I don't know anyone's really going to want to see when playoff time comes around because, when Cam Rising comes back, he's one of those guys that he's a gamer. He makes plays. and you got to account for him, tucking the ball and running as well. So, like I said, it hurts my heart because I always say Utah, like, come on, Utah. But they have made a lot of people believers, and I'm starting to get on that train myself.
I just want to know what their calling cards are. Like, how do they recruit there? Like, as a recruit, as a high school guy, if Utah was calling, I just don't see myself even thinking twice or being like, oh, Utah, But I mean, they just seem to recruit well. They seem to. I would love to know what their secret sauce is in recruiting and what is attracting these guys to go to that school.
I think it has to do, at least in part, with the head coach. Kyle Whittingham's done a tremendous job with them, but I get it, right? Like I don't think there's a true brand to call, Utah home, but like you guys mentioned, done a really nice job over the last couple of years. One final game before we get into this preview with Illinois. Tennessee beats Oklahoma 25-15 to improve to 4-0. Oklahoma drops their first SEC game of the season. Tennessee, guys, another team who is committed to run the football. They ran the ball 52 times this past weekend. But the difference in this one is Tennessee's got quarterback play that is going to work, I think, in big games. I've seen a lot of these like really early postseason brackets and things like that. And a lot of times Tennessee and Penn State seem to find themselves in the 8-9 or the 7-10 type of matchup. I think this is a really good Tennessee team. I can't say I've watched as much Tennessee football as I have some other teams that we've commented on, but they seem to pass the eye test so far. Obviously they dropped 71 last week on Kent State, but a good win against the top 25 team in Oklahoma on the road. They go to Norman. This game, by the way, guys, was 22-3 at the end of the third quarter. Oklahoma scores 12 in the fourth to make it competitive. But a Tennessee team that I think another program that has found some footing and some consistency once again within the top 10, top 15, basically each and every year.
Yeah, Tyler, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. That's all, was saying that final score, I don't think was really indicative of how dominant Tennessee was in that game. I actually was picking Oklahoma to win that game, and both offensive and defensive line for Tennessee really just controlled both lines of scrimmages, and the offense was humming. And those are the type of games that are confidence builders for a team like Tennessee, a younger team that says, hey, if we can go into Oklahoma and win, we can go anywhere and win. So I think they're a dangerous team because a team that has a bunch of talented players that's playing with confidence could be a dangerous team. So I haven't looked ahead to see kind of what their schedule looks like for the remainder of this season, but those are the type of games that really springboard a team into an elevated space as they continue to go throughout their season.
Yeah, and some really cool storylines to that game as well. Oklahoma's quarterback, 5-star guy, same class as Tennessee's quarterback, Nico. I'm not even gonna try to say his last name. I think it's Iamaleava or something like that. But I mean, like 2 5-star guys, Elite 11 guys, young guys who are supposed to take these programs to, back to where they're supposed to be, head to head from that standpoint. But man, like Nico looks good. I mean, he's just huge, long, lanky, can run, can do it all, make every throw. Jackson was a bit flustered at times during that game, I thought, but Tennessee looked comfortable. Their defense is playing at a high level. Shout out to my old Coach Tim Banks, who coached me here at Penn State for a year. He's got them over there at Tennessee as their defensive coordinator. He's got them boys strapped, ready. They're playing well. They're tackling well. They got some fire to them, and they're playing with a chip. So it'll be interesting to see, how the rest of their season pans out. But I'm a believer in this Tennessee team.
Yeah, and Jay's like when you go through the recruiting process, we all pick Penn State, but you always like the teams that you were thinking about going to. Like for me, it came down to Penn State and Tennessee, and I had these, home and decided to go to Penn State. But I always say like Penn State, Rutgers, and Tennessee are like when they're not playing Penn State, I'm rooting for them because I was down with the Tennessee helmet on. I was thinking about going, man, but I just with the Nittany Lions. But Tennessee was a great school, man, great program down there, and it's good to see them, back.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, one final segment before we get out of here. We're going to preview the Illinois game coming up because a sneaky good matchup all of a sudden. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Empire Today because there are a ton of copycat carpeting and hardwood flooring companies around. But what Empire promises you is that you're going to get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Because listen, some of these copycat companies, they provide you with maybe a flashier deal, or they say they're going to get things done in half the time. And that may be true, but what you're going to lack is quality. What you're going to lack is service. Empire isn't going to promise you anything that they're not going to deliver on, and they stand on their product because they have been doing it for years. They have thousands of choices, but they're going to simplify it to exactly what you're looking for. They don't want to overwhelm you and provide you with swatches and samples and things like that. You can use their virtual floor designer to figure out exactly what the layout of your room is going to be, to figure out, do you want hardwood? Do you want carpet? Do you want something new that maybe you didn't even think about at first? Empire today is going to walk you through all of these processes in a painless fashion, and they're going to do it with you in mind. Because shopping for floors at a big box store can certainly be frustrating. And you might talk to somebody today who was a plumber or was an electrician yesterday. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but flooring is all that Empire today does. They live and breathe flooring. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, and all listeners will receive a $350 off discount when you use the promo code FANATIC. Restrictions do apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for more details and get started on your new home flooring experience that could change the entire construct of your house. And while I'm talking about things that could change you for the better, how about becoming a diehard today? Yes, that's right. It's never been a better time to get in on our diehard program because, of course, you're going to get all the podcasts and the live shows of every day, every team that you get, and the post-game shows like, for example, the PHLY Philly show was live last night reacting to the Phillies winning the NL East for the first time in 13 years. But you're also going to get premium written content from some of our members at allphly.com that you can only get by being a diehard. You get awesome merch, including a free t-shirt for signing up as a member. You'll get access to our members-only Discord that we call the PHLY Lounge. And you get 20% off all paid-for events. So all you got to do is head on over to allphly.com to unlock your 25% off your merch and events and the entire time that you are a member of the PHLY diehard community. Again, head on over to allphly.com and join the best sports fans in the city. I might be a little bit biased, guys, but I would attest that our fans are some of the best.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Just my paycheck comes from this company, so I might be a little bit biased, but we have some awesome fans in our Discord, and our diehards are the best. Guys, it is time. A game that on the schedule, when the schedule came out, you probably said, I shouldn't put words in your guys' mouth, but you probably said, yeah, Penn State should win this game. And now all of a sudden, it's a 7:30 kick at Beaver Stadium. Illinois is the 19th ranked team in the country. They're coming off an impressive overtime win at Nebraska, 31-24. And guys, I'm going to raise my hand and say that Joe Altmaier was not a name that I had circled as a quarterback that could be problematic for teams. But Joe Altmaier has been sensational for this Fighting Illini team. 10 picks, no interceptions. He won the Big 10 Co-Offensive Player of the Week award this past week for his 4 touchdowns that he threw against Nebraska in that overtime win. This is an Illini team that I think probably has snuck up on some people, especially maybe if you're not locked into the organization and you're outside of Champaign, Illinois. This is a pretty darn good Illinois team that's had some impressive wins. They've beaten Kansas, and Nebraska is their staple win so far this year.
I think this is a really gritty team. It'll probably be the grittiest O-line that we'll face all year, to be honest with you. Gritty O-line, they've been running the ball really well. You talked about Joe Altmaier. He's been playing at a really good level. I don't think this team is going to come in here and have a lights are too bright moment. I mean, I think they're going to come in here hungry. Brett Bielema is a great coach. I already saw him fired up in a press conference on Twitter talking about, they said it's going to be whiteout energy, whatever the hell that means. And, he's pumping that attitude into these guys like F Penn State. That's how he's telling Illinois right now. Like, screw these guys, screw what they're about, screw their whiteout. Like, we're going to come in there and ruin their party. And I'm very sure they're going to come in with that mindset. We're going to have to off-rip, set a tone. We're going to have to survive the first flurry of punches, Nebraska. They're going to have some plays dialed up early. They're going to have a trick play or two within the first 2 or 3 drives to try to catch us off guard for a touchdown, or whatever the case may be. So we got to be ready for all those things, handle them, and then put the pressure on them. But this is going to be a really good game, and Penn State's first test in Big 10 play.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more with everything that you both said. You look at a team like Illinois, playing at Penn State at night, a potential whiteout is going to be a crazy atmosphere. But you guys just got to think, they just went down to Nebraska. Nebraska, that's not an easy place to play. They went down there, they held their own, came out with an overtime win. So these guys, early in the season are somewhat battle tested. And I don't, as Jason said, I don't think this environment is going to be something that rattles them. Not to say, our folks still need to come bring that whiteout energy, everything that Coach Beckman has said, but our guys are going to have to strap it up. And as Jason and you, Tyler, said earlier, this is the type of game where those little mistakes can come back to bite you. We can't have these pre-stat penalties. I love Abdul's aggressiveness off the edge, but hey, we need you to hold that back, wait for that ball to be snapped, and let's get after it. We had a face mask. Tyler had a face mask penalty. I mean, they're mistakes, but those are the type of if we're third down, we stop somebody on third down and we get to that, a 5-yard penalty or give them an extra set of downs. That could be the difference within the game. So I just think, I'm sure Coach Franklin is hard. Us three have been talking about it all season, making sure you play a clean game. Don't let, this game's going to be hard enough to win. Don't make it any more difficult on yourself to get through these games. But I still remain confident. I think our guys are going to be ready to play. And this is, as we all say, this is the first test of the season.
Jason, you bring up the offensive line that Illinois has, and I think they're kind of played in tandem with how good Altmaier's been. He's done a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quickly, protecting the football. Like we said, he hasn't turned it over yet this year. And last week against Nebraska, he was 10 of 12 for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. So I think that the offensive line has picked him up a lot. He's had clean pockets to throw out of, and his decision-making in turn has been much better. He was a turnover machine at Illinois last year, and those numbers have dropped to 0 because of how protective of the football that he has been. And then you bring up the run game. I didn't know this heading into this one. They have 4 guys who have already eclipsed the 100-yard mark. And, 4 games in, that's only 25 yards a pop. But to say you have 4 of those guys, everybody else take them aside, that's minimum 400 rushing yards in the first 4 games. You get to that triple-digit mark, and Jason and Adam, you guys were talking about defending the run being a kind of a primary objective number 1 for most defenses. They're averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground. This is an offense that I think, like we used the phrase, kind of is going to sneak up on people a little bit. But Altmaier's done a good job of getting the football out of his hands. They're protecting him, and the run game has been strong. This is a good good Illinois offense. Yeah,
I mean, they got Fagan, they got McCray, 2 running backs that I don't think they're to the level of our 2 backs, but I think they got 2 guys that can tote the ball and that are confident out there that can pick up those 3 or 4 yards of play. So again, you got the more guys that an offense has, is the more defense has to worry about. So that's the thing, and I know Jason mentioned this earlier. That's the thing I love that Andy K has done. And he has given Illinois a lot to think about. The various things that they have to think about this week is taking time away from other game planning that they probably want to do. So I love that standpoint. Even though we played at Kent State, he put a lot on film for Illinois to have to worry about going into the game this week.
Yeah, this is going to be a game that's one in the trenches to me. I'm very excited to see the matchup of our D-line versus that gritty O-line that I talked about earlier. I'm very interested to see our O-line hold up against their D-line, because against Bowling Green gave us a little bit of problems. Dylan Raiola got sacked about 5 times in that game. So I want to know, and 3 of them came in that overtime drive, actually. So I'm very excited to see how our O-line holds up. I thought Drew's pocket awareness last week was absolutely phenomenal. The best I've seen him play from that standpoint. Super calm, super poised, stepping up in the pocket, being timely, and knowing when to use his legs to run and things of that nature. His decision-making was very on point. I'm hoping to see, him continue that growth in this game. But this is a big boy game for us, You got to buckle the chin strap, bring your lunch pail, and it's time. Oh, yeah. It's time.
It's funny. Like, this was totally unintentional, but it's kind of funny when topics come full circle in a show because you guys, you brought up the offensive or their offensive line versus Penn State's defensive line. And the one thing, inversely, Penn State's offensive line versus Illinois' defensive line. Illinois struggles to get off the field on third down. They've given up third down conversions on over 42% of their third down opportunities. It's 106th in college football. And this is what I'm talking about, the full circle moment. We talked earlier in the show about the difference in or the mental difference in a 3-play burst drive versus a long sustained drive. Could you envision a more methodical Penn State offense today or this weekend? Keep Illinois' offense off the field, keep Altmaier on the sideline, and test that third down defense, which has struggled this year, and maybe have more of a lunch pail mentality, 3 yards in a cloud of dust before maybe something opens up. But you're ending up with 10-play drives, 12-play drives to keep that defense on the field as long as possible.
Hey, I'm all good with taking the Michigan approach this week. Make them stop us. Make them stop the run. Allen and Singleton until they stop it. But the good thing about us, we got a quarterback. Our QB can sling that thing if needed. But until that time, I'm like, hey, stop. You got to show us you got to stop the run before we start throwing the ball around. And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
One last thing, guys, before we get out of here. Red zone is going to be paramount for both of these teams. Illinois has not given up or has not scored or walked away without scoring points in the red zone this year. They are 16 for 16. They're one of 17 teams across college football who has scored on every red zone possession. However, they have given up points on 10 of their 10 red zone possessions, 5 touchdowns, and 5 field goals. Red zone opportunities, like most games that are going to be, highly contested games, are going to be probably at a premium, and they're also going to be extremely important. I think this is probably a no-dust statement, but the team that wins the red zone battle, I think will win this game.
Agreed. I think we've been a little bit pass happy in the red zone as of late, to be honest. I would love to see us, when we get into the red zone, continue to lean on the run and getting in the end zone that way. But I think this can be one of those games where we can kind of impose our will from a physicality standpoint and a who wants it more. They're coming off a really emotional win in Nebraska. I mean, it is not easy to go back-to-back weeks. You're on the road in Nebraska, super emotional win. You got to fly back. You're probably not home till 1, 2, 3 a.m. Wake up. You got to lift. It's really tough to go back-to-back weeks. Now they're going to be in a top 20 matchup at Penn State, 7:30, with all the freaking juice you could possibly ask for in Beaver Stadium. Can they muster enough? I'm not sure.
Guys, real quick before we get out of here, I do have one final question for you. We haven't done this, but this is probably the premier matchup that they've had so far. Give me an X factor in this game because, Jason, you just brought up the physicality of the run game. To me, this seems like it could play into the hands of, they're going to use both running backs, Penn State will. This feels to me like maybe it could be a Kaytron Allen game. I know Nick Singleton kind of the bulk guy for a majority of it, but I think Kaytron Allen could have some productivity in this one. Be a little physical, be a little bruising within the tackle boxes, and to me, I'm going to go with Kaytron Allen as an X factor for this game.
It's Ty Warren to me. I think it's become visibly clear that this offense is being built around him. And what can't he do? I mean, this guy is just dangerous. He's not a slug. He's a pass catcher. He can hurt you in the pass game. He can freaking block. He can play wildcat quarterback. He could throw it. He could pass. I mean, there's nothing the guy can't do. He's going to be a great prospect at the next level. Not sure where he's going to go round-wise, but he has been quite the leader of this offense, and he's just a silent assassin. Doesn't do too much, man.
Man, you got me. That's why I was going with Tyler Warren because he was balling in Kent State, but I think this is going to be a nationally televised game. I think all of us at Penn State know about him, but I think this could be his national coming out party to say, hey, this is a guy. But I won't take Jason. I'm gonna go to the other side of the ball, and I think Abdul's been playing a little under the radar. I think he may cause some havoc, and I'm looking for 1 or 2 sacks out of my guy Abdul Carter. So just see what he does because I think he's ready to explode this weekend and have a big game for us.
Well, a shout out to all of our diehards. Thank you for everything that you guys do. And guys, a shout out to both of you. This was, as always, a ton of fun to be with you. One of my favorite hours of the week, getting to chat Penn State football with you both. Any closing sentiments or thoughts before we get out of here for the afternoon?
Wear your white.
All I got, man.
Well, whether you want to call it a whiteout or not, James Franklin, I know he was very particular with the wording he used because there's legality to it that I had no idea about.
Is there really?
Apparently, they can only legally do it one time per year because of trademarks and things like that. I'm gonna dive a little deeper into it, but he was very specific about the words he used when he was talking about that.
Whiteout energy, baby.
There you go.
Penn State, Illinois, 7:30 under the lights at Beaver Stadium, a top 25 matchup, and we will break it all down for you next week, Tuesday at 4 o'clock. So for my partners here, Adam Talieferro and Jason Cabinda, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. I'm Tyler Zulli saying thank you for hanging out with us here on the All Nittany Lion podcast. We will talk to you next week at 4 o'clock, breaking down this game, previewing next week's game, and everything that goes on in the college football landscape. Hope to talk to you then.